Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of SimplyPodLogical, the Simply Nailogical podcast. Simply Nailogical, Cristine.
Yes.
How are you and your short nails doing?
You know, I'm still in mourning.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't accepted the situation yet, so I'm in a mood,
Mood. Hashtag mood. So if anyone didn't see, Cristine recently posted a video on her main YouTube channel where she announced that she broke a nail.
I broke my nail again. And if you guys have eagle eyes, in our last podcast, I had the same short nails.
You can tell, yeah.
I just didn't say anything yet because I wasn't ready, Mm-hmm. It wasn't explained yet. So.
I like that your broken nail was sponsored too. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah. Have to pay for my loss and suffering somehow.
That's right. It made up for it. All right. So today we thought we would do something a little different. A few days ago, we were just watching YouTube. We're stuck at home watching YouTube a lot. And we saw this video by Tiffany Ferg. Mm-hmm. That's her name, right?
Yeah.
First of all, I should thank the audience. So you may remember a few episodes ago, I was talking about how the fact that I wasn't really familiar with any like female content creators who did like video essay style content. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people who listen or watch this podcast commented her name down below.
Yeah.
So I've watched a few of her videos now, and yeah, she's an excellent content creator, I think.
See, this is so cool. So like, we love your recommendations, guys, because it helps us discover people. Although I'd personally seen her videos. I saw her one on like MLMs and girl boss stuff a few months ago. But like that kind of stuff wasn't coming up in your recommended based on what you watch. So it's actually a good opportunity. From hearing from you guys, some suggestions, like so Ben could see some like female content creators.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like I wasn't suggesting those people didn't exist. None of them had really come across my radar. But I saw she uploaded a video just a few days ago on Twitter Philanthropy. And we think this is a pretty interesting topic. So basically she does like this critical analysis of internet culture and trends, I guess you could say. And she covered this sort of recent trend of a lot of online celebrities or just regular celebrities who are giving away money to people through Twitter or other social media. And is it a scam? Is it this altruistic thing? Or is it for PR? So she basically explores those sorts of questions around the topic. Yeah. So we thought we could have something to add to this because I think a lot of the people watching this probably know we've been sort of public, or we have publicized the fact that we have donated money to charity over time. And even recently with the healthcare worker tab, that is something we talked about on this podcast and we publicize as well. So we thought we could give a bit of our perspective as people who have publicly donated money as to, why do we publicize it? Are we just wanting the good PR and attention or the tax write-off? I think we can get into all that sort of thing.
A lot of people have lots of opinions on it too.
Yeah. And then I guess the other aspect of it is like this whole donation shaming topic, right? So this idea that I feel like people are just like stuck at home in a bad mood. So people are just looking for anything to be critical about right now. And I'm not saying there aren't times where there are legitimate criticisms of how people choose to donate money or potential scams, but it seems like people are just waiting for people to screw up and to criticize it, especially on Twitter. Twitter just seems like a really toxic place in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I think in general, I've especially seen in like mainstream media, and I'm thinking like Daily Mail articles that I see on Snapchat, like that kind of trash media. I've seen a lot of that kind of asks the question, where are our celebrity billionaires now? Why aren't they donating to COVID-19 related efforts? And I saw some people calling out on social media, like Kylie Jenner, for example, as, the one self-made billionaire at 19 years old or whatever.
Self-made. We're using that term
loosely. People like
loosely.
to use that, I guess is what I'm saying. And then they'll call her out because, well, we know you're so rich, but where are your donation efforts? Mm-hmm. And then, maybe a week later, she says that she donated $1 million to some relief fund. And then people are like mad at her after that, saying, well, why do you have to say that? Like you're all of a sudden a good person. But people were asking her, where is your proof of donation? As if she was required to, which no one is required to donate anything at the end of the day. Like you don't have to do these things. But it was just so interesting to see even mainstream media basically, like, is that shaming? Like calling out celebrities for not donating, is that shaming?
I think there's more of a mainstream conversation now going on even about like, should billionaires exist? Should we have a society where billionaires exist? So let's get into that. But first, let's address our sort of perspective on this, or our experience donating things. So the healthcare worker tab, people probably know about it. So we just gave some money to local restaurants so healthcare workers could come in and buy a meal. I saw let's be real, like the reaction to that was overwhelmingly positive from our fan base and just from the attention it sort of got in the broader community, let's say. But even with that one, I saw a few negative comments from the perspective of, wow, like you couldn't do something nice without publicizing it.
Yeah.
I think the first answer or thing that should be said is, in some cases, you need to publicize it so people can even take advantage of it. It really bothered me on this one, the few negative comments I saw, because if we didn't publicize it, healthcare workers wouldn't know to be able to claim it.
The tab existed. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are certain cases where you literally just have to publicize the donation so people can claim it. Right?
Yes.
So that's one aspect of it from my perspective. And then I guess the other thing I'd say is, in the past when we've done like the cat charity stuff, or even like, paying for people's tuition and things along those lines, a big part of publicizing the fact we're doing that, I think, is it's just drawing more attention to the importance of that cause. And maybe the people who look up to you will think of that the next time they're considering donating to something as well, right?
Yeah, and usually, like when we did the cats merch stuff, we would encourage people to donate to their local charity too, their local animal shelter, if they weren't able to purchase a t-shirt and support our local animal shelters, right? Because we were giving the money to animal shelters mostly in Ottawa. So we'd say things like that too, and it's not all about, you have to donate to our cause. It's just, it encourages people. It reminds people that these are things we care about. These are things that maybe you should care about. But of course, it's up to you and your own discretion how you spend or donate your money.
Yeah, and I should say, like, we have donated to things without putting it all over Twitter, right? Like, I think we recently did some accounting and like kind of looked back at like how much money we have given to charity, and it's a number we are proud of. Like there is an element of this that is like, yeah, it feels good to, like, it's nice to be in a position to be able to give money to charity, but it also does feel good to give money to charity and get some recognition for that too. There's absolutely an element of that here.
Yeah. And sometimes when you're raising money to pay charity by selling something like merch, you do need to share that that's what you're planning to do in order to sell that merch. So every time we had Menchie and Zyler t-shirts that we were selling, every time we did that, we said we were raising money. A portion of the proceeds would go to animal shelters and charities. So that's what we did. And then we showed that because we wanted to prove, and show that here's a $25,000 check, here's a $10,000 check after the campaign was over, so that people could see, like, with their own eyes what part of their purchase went to. So I think that's important too, because it's transparency more than just bragging about how much money you gave to charity, right? So there are other elements and I think reasons why people, at least us, like I'm just speaking for us, publicize what they donate and like who they're donating to.
And yeah, it's been an interesting experience because, like, especially early on, we would just like call our local animal shelter out of the blue, and I'd be like, hey, we're selling t-shirts online. I'm calling on behalf of like a social media, like sometimes I'll say like you're a digital media company, like, because when you call someone up and say like, hey, a YouTuber wants to donate money to you, I think they kind of roll their eyes.
Well, yeah, maybe they think like, oh, is this for some silly video that's like they're not entirely sure, and I understand the lack of confidence in that. So when we first reached out to an animal charity before we had done much public donation, they seemed to be kind of skeptical.
They basically, like, I asked for permission to like use their logo on the listing of the website so we could say we were raising money for them, and they seemed okay with that, but they basically didn't know if we were legitimate or not. I think they basically admitted later, because although the strange thing was, like, we walked in there with a big check and we gave them the money, and then like even then it seemed kind of like strange, like they didn't know how to react. Like, they were very thankful, but like I remember maybe I shouldn't say this when we gave a significant amount of money to our local animal shelter the first time, they didn't talk about it on like their Twitter or social media or anything. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I remember we thought that was pretty strange and wondered if they like just didn't want to be associated with like YouTubers or something.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to them about it after, and I think it was just sort of mistake or missed opportunity on their part. But it did feel kind of strange from our perspective to give what we thought was a pretty generous amount of money to someone and for them not to acknowledge it on social media, which is like where our business is on
and
social media.
I guess it only really hurt a little because they often publicize when other people donate. Like that's a lot of what their social media does. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like twice a week there'd be, you know, this hockey player raised $1,000 for us. Thank you so much to blah, blah, blah. Like that's what they would often use their social media for. So that's why it was weird.
Yeah. I think the day after we gave them like $25,000, there was some tweet about like local barbershop gave us $100.
And we're looking at each other. Okay, it's not a competition of who gave more money.
No.
And therefore we need recognition. It's just you do something nice for someone in any context. It doesn't have to be donating money. Just like you wash their car and then they thank someone else for washing their car. Like that's all I'm saying.
And subsequent to that, we did more work with them and we had a good relationship with them. And I think their contact picked up on the...
I think it was just an initial, they weren't sure of us. And you know what? I don't blame them because I'm not always sure of YouTubers' intentions.
Oh, totally.
And I kind of understand.
And I kind of want to be brutally honest about the aspect of it that, I'm not going to lie. Part of the attraction of donating charity is, one, there's a tax write-off. That's nice.
For most stuff we do, not all.
Not all of it.
Not
that's
all
true.
of it is,
But secondly, like this isn't necessarily a purely altruistic thing. Maybe there's no such thing as a purely altruistic act, though. It feels good to give money to charity, and it feels good when people say nice things about you after you give money to charity. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, we shouldn't always look at it that way either. Like every time a celebrity says that they donated to charity, they're not just doing it because they want to look like a good person. I don't make that automatic assumption.
I guess what I'm saying is it's not one or the other.
It's not one or the other. Yeah.
Yeah, it can be both. I think it usually is both. Yeah.
Yeah. Zyler thinks you're a great person for donating to animal charities.
Well, as long as Zyler thinks so. But I mean, speaking of the animal charity stuff, another criticism I saw of us at one point was that why were we giving so much money to animal charities when there's people who need support?
Yeah.
And this isn't in the current right now COVID-19 context. Right. This was, 2-3 years ago.
We're thinking a few years ago because we have given a lot to animal charities. I looked at the amount of money that we've donated across organizations since we started Simply Nailogical, and just over half of it was donated to animal-related charities. So that's a big proportion, but it's actually not as big as I thought.
You thought it would be more?
I thought it would be more, and the reason is because if you just take a look at like our channels and what we say about our donations, it does seem like we do a lot more to animals, but that's because they're all related to like a merchandise campaign usually, and that's something you promote multiple times, so it just sounds like we're doing a lot more for
or
animals.
It's just cute to have like a video announcing, hey, we're giving money to a cat charity or a cat cafe, because then the video is look at all these cute cats we're playing with while we
so we do talk about that because it's feel good, but Ben is right in that we did see some criticism from people who were seemingly upset that we were donating a lot to animal shelters at one point and that we weren't caring about, that people are hungry or there's children in poverty. And that, it's kind of upsets me because it's not like I don't care.
Well, like you just said, I think, about half of the charitable giving we've done has been to animal organizations, and the other half has been split between like tuition, the environment, some stuff with like the Red Cross and food banks and stuff like that. So there's a balance there. But I hear what you mean. And I don't know, anytime someone criticizes someone else's charitable giving because they think you should be donating to something else, really, if that's the thing you're criticizing someone online for,
that's not
I
really
really
fair.
think you should reevaluate what you're doing.
No one is obligated to donate to anything, really. We don't have to donate to animal charities either. Would you prefer we just did neither? Is that the equality you're looking for? I'm not really sure what they want.
Yeah, I don't
or do they prefer don't donate to animal charities at all and only donate to human related charities? I mean, animals help humans too, and it's really I know that's silly, but it's about what you want to do and what you makes what makes you feel good with how you donate your own money.
And I mean, this is a deeper conversation, but we shouldn't be living in a society where it's dependent on financially successful people to really prop up the sort of social causes we all care about, right? Ideally, we wouldn't be counting on the Bill Gates and Elon Musk's or Amazon guys, what's his name? Bezos. We wouldn't be counting on them giving billions of dollars to the causes we think they should be giving to, right? We shouldn't have to count on those people to donate.
Yeah.
We'll get into the billionaire stuff a little bit more. But so the Twitter philanthropy stuff that I think a lot of people are talking about right now, I don't think we're really a good example of that. Because we've maybe tweeted about the giving we've done, but I think a lot of people now are questioning the motives and the approach of giving away money through
on
Twitter threads on
and then
Twitter.
The requirement is to retweet or to follow, or in other words, to get the attention drawn to that tweet.
Yeah, but let's be fair here. So some people are doing it different ways. So we're seeing tweets from there's a guy who calls himself the Twitter philanthropist who's been doing this a lot. Jeffree Star did this. Tana Mongoose did this idea where they say, hey, I really want to just give money directly to the people who need it right now. Tweet at me if you need the money, and I'll Venmo you or PayPal you some cash, right? So we've seen quite a few examples of this now, and other people have made this point, Tiffany Ferg and others, but I think it bears repeating that there's something kind of strange about that approach, in that it basically turns into this competition for who has a sad story, and then it becomes just this almost endless chain of desperate Twitter replies.
Yeah,
it's really sad in a way, and you're asking people to very publicly talk about their terrible situation just in case you win the lottery and Jeffree Star or Tana Mongoose decides to give you the money.
It is kind of sad. I know what you mean. It looks like a shrine of the poverty Olympics almost. People are competing to show that they're more poor than the next person who tweets.
And one of the most depressing things you could do on social media is look through the replies on those threads, and you'll see, I don't mean to make light of it, but it's literally people I lost my legs in a car accident, my whole family has AIDS, can I have the $500 you're saying we could have? And it's just wow. And looking at all those comments, that only a very small handful of people are gonna get anything.
It's one thing for a person to decide that that's what they want to put on the internet and share their stories, but it's another thing for the person who started this tweet series.
They're soliciting.
Right? If you had asked, tell me how bad things are for you, basically. You're asking people to just be really vulnerable and put their stories out there, whereas they may not have done that otherwise unless they were so desperate to have just the chance of getting your donation. Yeah,
because I guess we've wondered if there was a way of us just giving money to people in the current situation, and we ultimately landed on that the healthcare worker tab because we thought it was a more targeted way of doing things. We thought about doing it with grocery store workers at one point.
Actually, that was another comment we got in other forms of donation shaming, I guess. When we did that healthcare worker tab, I did see people being upset. Well, what about other essential workers? Are we nothing to you?
Yeah, but it's tough, you have to, pragmatically, we have to limit it in a certain way. But I get it. I feel grocery store workers specifically right now, I think are in a crazy position. They're essential. They have to go to work. Most of these people are teenagers or people who don't have highly skilled jobs who need to keep working. And they're literally in a position where they're just constantly coming in. I know they've put up plexiglass and stuff in a lot of the stores now, but it's still awful. They should be receiving hazard pay or something, and it shouldn't be
there
up to.
There is some of that in Canada. There is some legislation that's starting up.
I've heard something about that. I'm not sure if it's happened yet, but it shouldn't be on YouTubers and rich people to be, helping these people win cash prizes through social media competitions. Really.
You're right. The world should just be a better structured, more equal place so that they don't have to be put in the position where they're willing to show their empty fridge and travesties on social media. Yeah.
And I want to be careful. I also don't want us to be shaming. So even though we don't really like that approach of tell us a sad story on Twitter and we'll give you money, I have to think that most of those people's hearts are in the right place, that they're really just trying to find a way of directly giving money to people.
Yeah.
And I'd say I know they've faced some criticism for a variety of reasons lately, but H3H3, Ethan and Gila's approach to doing it on Twitter, I think is probably the safest and smartest way of going about it. Okay. They just have a Twitter bot. They just say, retweet our tweet every day, so the Twitter bot can accept it. We're not asking you to follow us. We're not asking for a sad story.
So it's random?
And we'll just randomly select. Picked. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why you have to retweet it.
And that's why
the Twitter
no one
bots can only pick it if you have retweeted the tweet.
So because of the nature of the contest, no one is really motivated to share all their sad shit.
No.
Right, because there's no point.
And hey, if after they win it, they share a story about how impactful it is and other people see that, that's up to them. That's at their discretion, and maybe there's some value in that. So I have a lot of respect for how they're going about that. And I think it's like $150,000 over however long they're giving away.
Wow.
Like $500 a day to 3 people, I think. Yeah. It's pretty amazing what they're doing. So kudos to those guys for doing that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so speaking of H3H3, they've kind of been at the center of a lot of controversy about donations and donation shaming specifically, because actually he never really said it, but Ethan was facing a lot of criticism for supposedly donation shaming Jeff Bezos, which didn't happen, but I don't want to dwell on that or revisit that controversy. I think it's
saw that in my recommended and was kind of confused.
Yeah, he never really said it, but I think there's this broader conversation going on about, is it okay to shame billionaires for not donating or only donating a little bit of money to causes, or specifically what's going on in the world right now? And I guess the Jeff Bezos example is, here's the richest man in the world, and even though he gave $100 million, he gave what looks like a very significant sum of money, but a lot of the reaction to it from critical people online was that, well, if you compare what that money means to him to like your average person, that's like him donating like $1 out of their pocket for someone who just makes the average income.
Yeah.
But for Jeff Bezos, multi-billionaire, it represents very little. I think there's a lot to unpack here about people's anger about that. First of all, if you're someone shaming him online and you're above the poverty line, I would ask, like, are you donating anything at all? Because you really aren't in a position to criticize anyone for donating any amount of money, even if it's a small proportion of their wealth, if you're not really contributing anything in that way. I understand if you're in a position where you can't donate because you're literally just trying to survive and keep food on your table. But there's a lot of people out there who don't donate anything who could be. Yes. So I think we should get that out of the way. And those people should not be criticizing anyone for anything like this. I kind of get it that, there is a lot of anger about billionaires not doing enough. But I think the anger shouldn't be about how much they're donating. I think the anger is really just about, we live in a society where you have such
an imbalance,
pronounced income inequality, right? The fact that you have a guy like Jeff Bezos who has billions of dollars, and the fact that he's built that amazing amount of wealth on the backs of workers on his companies who are not making a lot of money. Like, wasn't this article a while back suggesting that like a lot of people who work in Amazon warehouses are also reliant on food stamps,
And didn't recently he try and do like a fundraiser for like a Kickstarter for Amazon workers to help front the bill?
Yeah, I think
like he was asking Amazon customers to help donate.
Yeah, they wanted to crowdsource to raise money to help like supplement the income of people working at Amazon. And
so people are upset with him for those reasons. And I think Ben's right. Like that's where a lot of the frustration comes from. It isn't just about that he donated the equivalent to you donating $5, right? It's more about this broader question of him just being that rich, like that he has that much money, and that most people in this world have nowhere near that.
Yeah, the $100 million or however much he donated, even if it seems like a small proportion of his net worth, that's still an insane amount of money to donate to anything, right? Like the only guy really, I saw like Jack Dorsey, the Twitter guy, he donated like a third of his net worth to this. And that's just, I know that really raises the bar. Like that shouldn't be seen as normal or necessary. We shouldn't be donation shaming. We should be really questioning. Yeah, we should be questioning how we ended up in a place in our society with an economic system that allows for this to happen, right?
Yeah. But it does make sense to me, like psychologically and on like a social Twitter feed perspective, where it becomes an easy nugget, an easy way to attack someone, like just on this very specific point. It's an easy thing to claim, to say, oh, this is only the equivalent of me donating like $1, do better. So it's an easy thing to attack and unpack, because it's hard to have the conversation about wealth inequality in like a simple tweet. It's much easier to just do a quick donation shaming. You know what I mean?
You're right. It's easy to just, oh, you didn't donate enough money. Because who are you really criticizing if it's...
Are you criticizing this person as an individual, like Jeff Bezos, because he has such a bad moral conscience that he only donated the equivalent of $5 like for him? No, like I think it's a broader question of society and inequality that people are upset by, and that's what should make people upset.
So should billionaires exist, Christine? I think that's the billion-dollar question.
The billion. Good one, Ben. Well, you've kind of touched on this before, I think in a video of ours.
I mean, I think I kind of got in trouble, or I saw some criticism of something I said in a Simply Nailogical video, where basically I think we were briefly having a conversation about a wealth tax. Somehow that came up while we were, eating nail polish, or you were painting my nails.
Yep.
And I would just ask people to kind of keep in mind, when we're having conversations in Simply Nailogical videos and you're seeing like
4 minutes.
Quick jump cut, like 30 seconds of a conversation instead of like the 5-10 minute conversation you had, like, of course it's not a nuanced conversation about something,
and
right?
of course it's kind of quick and doesn't have the full context, and I probably cut it just to something that sounded out of place, like on purpose, because that's kind of how my Simply Nailogical videos go.
Yeah, so I think I said something along the lines of, I think I advocated that I thought a wealth tax made sense, which is fine. But I made some comment about how I had a bigger issue, and this is related to wealth tax. I had a bigger issue with people who have inherited vast amounts of money, as opposed to a guy who created an Amazon or PayPal and all of a sudden got hundreds of millions of dollars that way. I'm not saying in either case it's a good thing that we have such income inequality in our country, but I still think I hold by that point, though. I think there is a huge problem where you have such vast amounts of wealth in the US and Canada, around the world, that are concentrated in these families, like these oligarchies, where someone's great-great-grandfather happened to be the guy who started working in the oil and gas sector like 100 or 150 years ago. And for that reason, all of his like generations after him are the people with like an enormous amount of influence on politics, just because of how much money they have and how much they can donate to the causes or lobby governments to do what they want.
They aren't paying as much in taxes to their governments and back to society, because that inheritance is not an income, right? So the people maybe who made the exact same amount as an income, they're paying way more back in taxes.
Well, yeah, I'm not a tax expert, despite
but just like on the whole, very high level, that's kind of also
there are inheritance tax. We should be careful. There
are. Sorry, I'm not saying there's not. It's just not as much as someone who earned the same amount as like a salary.
Sure, and I guess the issue is what you see is people with a lot of money, more money than us. Like I'm talking like amazing amounts of wealth, have teams of people dedicated to their personal and corporate taxes and figuring out ways not of paying tax.
Tax avoidance.
And that's why you hear these crazy headlines, or see these crazy headlines about Amazon paid no tax, or X corporation made hundreds of millions of dollars and paid no tax.
Because their holding company is in Ireland or whatever.
They're using shell companies, they're writing off losses, they're doing all sorts of crazy things. Even the charitable giving stuff, like we joke about, we don't do this, but there are tricky, dubious legal ways of inflating the value of your charitable giving to give yourself like a bigger write-off than you should be getting. For example, like let's say you're donating artwork to a museum because you're some billionaire. You could have bought that artwork for $100,000, but you get someone to appraise it for $1 million. You donate it to a museum, and then you get $1 million tax write-off. There's all sorts of weird, tricky ways of not paying tax, really.
Essentially scamming.
And the tax code in general is just so incredibly complicated. It's propped up this entire industry of like corporate tax lawyers and accountants who have to be familiar with these bizarre laws that we have to pay, and they only really exist because the tax code is so complicated. So I feel like we're sort of due for the reform of taxes in general. Like, I don't know, this is taking more of a tax turn than I thought, but like I thought a lot of people really responded to like Andrew Yang being in the last he running for the Democratic presidential nominee in the States in this still current election cycle, I guess. And I think he's just like 10, 15 years ahead of his time, maybe. I think 10 years from now, we're going to be having conversations about all the things he was trying to raise now. The automation of people's jobs away, the way we have to supplement, you know, people's income, or like a universal basic income. Yeah. Or what I think might even be, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, but from what I've heard of economists who seem to be very smart and have thought about this issue, I think a negative income tax is a thing that could actually work.
What is that?
So the same way we have like a progressive income tax, like the more you make, the more tax you pay. It just means right now that line sort of ends at if you make under a certain amount, you don't have to pay taxes. It just means it goes down and you actually get a credit if you make under that base amount. So like a universal basic income, for example, would just give anyone, regardless of how much they make, $1,000 a month or something like that. But that includes like
the people who don't need it.
CEOs of banks would also be getting that. And then it just gets taxed back at the end of the year. I think the issue with that, and like a lot of psychological research has shown this, that people hate giving up the money they have. Yeah. More than, that con outweighs the benefit of receiving the money in the first place. So it'd be better off not giving those money in the people those money in the first place just to take it away. You'd be better off only giving money back to people in a way that's tested that they actually need the money in the first place.
So let's tie this back to should billionaires exist? And since they do exist now, what is the way out of their existence?
Throw them in the ocean.
No, Ben. There are billionaires currently. You
can't
just snap your fingers and they don't exist.
And yeah, I don't think it's kind of a stupid question in a way, because it's not that billionaires shouldn't exist. It's that we shouldn't have an economic system that lets someone become a billionaire while their employees are reliant on food stamps.
I think that's a really good way to put it. Because it's not just outright like no one should have X amount of money. It's what are they doing to get that money and who are they using to help them get there? And that is really sad when you see a company with such a disparity within the company. Like those people collectively, whether at different times, yes, obviously there was like a CEO who started it from the ground up. I'm not saying that they should all get paid the same rate. Obviously there's going to be differences in the hierarchy. But to see such wide gaps within companies is sad, yeah. And that's kind of the hard reality. Maybe that's how people should look at it, rather than just write off billionaires overall.
Yeah, and not to say we're anywhere close to having that amount of wealth, but like we're pretty well off now. We've had a lot of financial success, and we've seen a little bit about what it means to be a business owner. Like through Holo Taco, we have a lot of financial responsibility for other people now. We had to shut down Holo Taco operations for the previous 2 months, and we're just sort of ramping things back up now. And it would be very easy to just sort of criticize business owners for not doing enough, or people in our position for not doing enough. But like, we have seen what it looks like on the back end to, you know, own a company that doesn't have any revenue coming in for 2 months, and how that adds up very quickly, you know? So we're not saying this is, I think it's really easy to criticize rich people when you're not rich and there's no chance of you being rich in a way. You know what I mean? Like, there's a reason why a lot of students are the ones at these rallies protesting and saying, eat the rich. And then a lot of those people grow up and get jobs and they have families, and all of a sudden they're making amounts of money. And you just see this generational shift that as they get older, they get a little more conservative in politics. We've seen that trend is really consistent. And I've probably gotten a little more conservative over time than I was when I was like 18 years old.
Just be like fiscally conservative, not otherwise.
But I would say even in a social way, I think what we consider progressive now, when we're 50, 60 years old,
it might shift too.
What was progressive to us probably won't seem progressive to the 18-year-olds 50 years from now, right?
Yeah.
And we can't really predict that. And that's why
But that makes sense. Like, that's just an evolution of thoughts and discourse and history. So, like, of course, that's the natural progression.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, it's a kind of natural progression that one day we'll be the people on our porch shaking our fist at old people.
Those damn kids with their thoughts and their TikToks and TikToks. Like, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And this doesn't mean that, like, we should just ignore, what students, for example, at those rallies are saying. They're saying, eat the rich. Like, I understand a lot of this criticism and the anger and the frustration that is coming out of people who are donation shaming on Twitter and getting mad at Jeff Bezos for his equivalent of $5 donation or whatever it is. I understand the frustration, and we do need some of that. We need that, right? To just socially push people towards thinking about inequality and imbalances. If we didn't have those groups of people, then, like, what's just going to happen? Like, everyone will just go status quo and not care about these things and imbalances, and no one will push towards making anything better. So we're not trying to, like, discount these thoughts and feelings at all.
I don't want to dismiss the political leanings of young people. In a lot of ways, my biggest fear with the success we've had through YouTube and the nail polish company and all of that, one of my biggest fears is that we sort of lose perspective on certain things. And one of those things is, like, what life is like for 95% of people who are living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
Like, one of the scariest things about this current situation is, I saw some headline about, like, how many people were not in a position to be prepared for an emergency that would have cost them like $1,000 out of pocket or $2,000 out of pocket.
Yeah.
And just knowing, like, how much of the population is not in a position to handle an unexpected financial burden like that doesn't necessarily seem like a lot of money to us at this point. So yeah, I do worry about that. And that's why I think you see, remember there was that huge blowback to the celebrities singing Imagine. Gal Gadot.
Yeah, very out of touch celebrities in their mansions
because they were trying to say, we're all in this together. So let's just sing a song on Twitter. And all you see in the background of their singing is the $20 million mansion they live in LA, right? And I'm not shaming them for having that success, but what they should be ashamed of is really suggesting that they're in the same position as the person who was just laid off of their job and doesn't know how they're going to put food on the table next week.
I don't think, like, they thought that way. I really don't believe that they thought to themselves, we're all exactly equal in our financial economic situation. They didn't think that, obviously, when they were filming it. They just didn't. They're doing exactly what you said. They lost perspective. And they just didn't think, well, wait a second, I am filming this in quarantine, which for me is amazing because my house is great. And, like, other people don't have that luxury. And a lot of people can't even stay in quarantine because they are essential workers and they have to go to work, like at the grocery store, like we were just talking about. And it did come off kind of out of touch, even though I really don't believe that they were, like, ill-spirited and trying to show off their mansions. Like, I don't think that was their mindset.
No, but I think just even implying that we're all sort of in this together feeling.
Yeah.
And just how that doesn't acknowledge at all how different this situation is for the people in the mansion versus the people
Actually, interesting. I saw an interview, or just like a transcript of part of an interview with Miley Cyrus recently. I think she did an Instagram live where she talked about how quarantine is not the same for her as it is for other people. And she did exactly the opposite of what these celebrities did.
It should be easy and obvious to acknowledge that,
but right? She acknowledged it, like, point out, like, yes, I'm in quarantine. Yeah, it kind of sucks. It's not the same as what other people are going through. I know that. So I really appreciated, like, seeing her just explain that, just flat out, being like, I'm not suffering. There are many people who are, and kind of laid out some
And we
examples.
should say, too, like, we're not in a mansion in Hollywood, but, like, we're in a house that's pretty nice that we were able to afford because of YouTube success, and we live in a neighborhood we can walk around and stuff. So, like, that's why I don't want us to complain about quarantine or anything either, right? Because I think we have it better than most people.
No. And when I complain, like, it's for jokes and entertainment. You know, I'm like, I'm so bored with Ben, I'm going to paint his nails with a hockey stick. Like, that is for entertainment, because a lot of the role of influencers, well, especially YouTubers, is we entertain. So there are going to be some silly jokes that hopefully people find more funny than out of touch.
Yeah, you want it to be a bit of a distraction. But then you got to be careful, right? Because then you see someone like Ellen post a video where she goes, being quarantined in my house is just like being in prison because I can't leave and I'm surrounded by lesbians. It's actually kind of a funny joke in a way. But for someone in her position to be even drawing the parallel between like her being confined in her mansion to being in prison, when people imprisoned, and a lot of people in prison are not there for horrible, terrible, violent crimes. I think we should point that out. Those people were in an incredibly dangerous situation in terms of being exposed to the virus, and no one really wants to advocate for prisoners, right? So they're kind of like the last people you think about in situations like this. But I think that parallel made people even more upset about her sort of trying to make a joke about comparing herself to being in prison.
Because it is one of the worst situations for people in prison right now, given the epidemic outbreak.
Maybe we should, this got a little too negative. Maybe we should give some kudos. Other than H3H3, there have been people who have been doing some cool things. And I'm not a huge fan of him. I think some of the stuff he does is a little immoral or irresponsible. But David Dobrik.
Okay.
I know you don't really watch his content. I think it's a little too frat boy-y for you.
That period of my life is over. Seeing a bunch of guys act like douchebags.
Reminds you.
Done. I'm done.
But he's basically turned into like a car dealership. Like he's done some pretty amazing philanthropy on his channel. And recently, I guess he's kind of stopped making videos since this whole situation, but he came back for one video. He had a sponsor. I guess they helped him pay for the stuff, but he basically just drove around LA like throwing money at people and giving people cars and giving kids video games. And
I did see that video and I thought it was well done, and it seemed like he had good intentions, and it's great.
I don't care like who you are. It's impossible to watch a video like that and not like just have a smile on your face.
And thinking forward to future things that we want to donate to. Like I know we already have 3 things this year that we want to donate to an animal-related charity.
Well, I don't think you have to say what they are, but typically these things we know well in advance that we're going to be donating to certain causes.
Them. Yeah.
And I would say like now more than ever, with a lot of people in the financial positions they are, a lot of charities are really in desperate need of money right now, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think what you were about to ask or what you were getting at is, with these like upcoming things, are people bothered when we talk about them publicly? Would we rather just sort of do it quietly and not really draw attention to it? Or do we see a value in you using your platform to show like, here's a cause I'm contributing to, and then also just giving airtime and a platform to that cause? Yeah.
It's like when we do tuition giveaways. I mean, I don't just do them because I want to help out like 3 students, because that's what we do. Like we're just helping 3 students. It's not a widespread thing where if you give it to an animal charity, they can do many things for many animals, for example. Like it's just 3 students. It's not just that. I support education, and I want to encourage young people, especially young women, but everyone, to think about school and think about post-secondary. So when I do these tuition giveaways, it's not just like giving away money to some kids, I think, who deserve it. It's telling other people how I feel about that, and that I think it's so important that I want to help people out. So you're right. Like, it's not just about giving away money. I'm so good. I have like a message or an important thing that I want to share and encourage people to consider that message too.
Yeah. And there's, this might sound kind of pretentious, but there's a bit of like a legacy aspect to it I see as well. 'Cause like, one day we're not going to be online anymore. We're not going to be making videos.
And we don't have kids.
People will forget about us. We'll just be dead in the ground.
But we'll have paid a couple people's tuition, so they're like our children.
But actually, there is something to that, right? Like many years from now, people won't be remembering that girl who did 100 layers of nail polish.
Really?
But there might be people out there who are like, oh, I remember that girl. She helped pay my way through school. Or like she gave enough money to this pet rescue organization that they were able to keep their doors open, you know? Like that sort of impact we can have, that is more impactful than, you know, the cultural impact of your YouTube videos, let's say.
Yeah, I wonder though, like what people will really remember, because Daily Mail will always just remember me as the girl who put 100 layers, the woman who put 100 layers of nail polish on. That's all I'm known for.
We should have a podcast just looking at the articles that have acknowledged your existence. There aren't many of them, but it's always funny seeing like the sort of narrative spin on it.
Yeah.
I guess lately it has been more of the philanthropic stuff, and we actually had a conversation with someone recently who was maybe interested in doing a piece on you that really focused on the philanthropic side of things. Maybe that will happen. I don't know. But otherwise, if we see coverage of you in like Daily Mail or these like kind of random clickbaity websites, yeah, a lot of the time it really presents you as just some like dumb nail polish girl.
Yeah. But is that my fault though?
I guess that kind of is your persona.
That's kind of my fault.
Yeah, but there have been some headlines that were kind of like almost insulting. Like when you painted your dad's nails, there was an article. Do you remember this? Yeah. I think it was Daily Mail too. And like the headline was bizarre. Like, dad says nails should be in a museum.
Like what?
But the caption, like, I'm pretty sure described you as like dumb nail polish girl. Like, like something pretty close to that anyway.
Yeah, like silly nail polish girl or something.
Pretty hilarious.
Yeah, but that's another podcast of media and its perception of YouTubers.
And, you know, we should really try to get some sponsors on this podcast so we have more money to give away to people, you know?
Actually, that's a good question we didn't talk about yet, is sometimes when people do sponsorships or just have ads on their videos, they then turn around and say, okay, we're donating that, right? Mm-hmm. So, for example, when there was a power outage, like a couple years ago in Ottawa, we filmed during that power outage, but we wanted to do something with the ads that we got from that video. So we ended up donating, I think it was like $12,000 to the Ottawa Food Bank or the Red Cross. Yeah. And I remember, like, instead of people reacting positive, okay, a lot of people reacted positively and were like, that's so cool of you, because we were also affected by the tornado. So it was a personal cost to it. Yeah. Not affected, like, our house was not destroyed.
Oh, you just lost power.
But we lost power for 3 days, and our community had impacts as a result. But there were some people who said, like, that's how much money you make on a YouTube video? Like, that was the reaction.
Oh, that was the focus.
Yeah, that was the focus. Wait a second, you make $12,000 on this YouTube video? I'm so confused. That's way too much. Right?
I mean, it was a lot. Usually a single video doesn't make that much money. I think that video did well from a CPM perspective, and for some reason just did really well. I'm not trying to hide the fact that we make a lot of money on a given month, but typically it's not a single video that does that well, I would say.
I also think when YouTubers say that they're donating all the ad revenue from this video to whatever cause, most of the time they don't actually disclose how much that was. So that's why a lot of people were like, what the hell? $12,000. They were shocked. Like, they're like, that makes no sense.
Yeah, and I guess, we should be clear that we don't really feel above other people in the sense, like, we've talked about the criticism that someone's only donating maybe 5% of their net worth to something, as if that's a terrible thing. We've donated, I don't know the exact figure, but I think it's close to $200,000 to charitable causes through Simply Nailogical. And, you know, we've acknowledged that we've made millions of dollars through YouTube. Right. So, you know, is it some incredible percentage of all the money we've ever made that's gone to charity? No, but I would say it's a good amount of money, and it's an amount we feel good about, but we're not pulling a Jack Dorsey Twitter guy and donating a third of our net worth. Also, when someone donates a third of their net worth, like, what does that even actually? Yeah, what does that even look like? It's not their
liquid cash assets.
Yeah, when people talk about billionaires, it's not like they have $1 billion sitting in a checking account. Most of that money is tied up or are literally just like the stock they own of their own publicly traded company, right?
And so they'd have to sell all those stocks to actually be able to donate the money.
Presumably, or I guess you could sell. you could donate the stock itself, right?
True. Yeah.
You could donate shares of
Ben
Simply
always
Nailogical.
knows all these tax things and all these financial. Ben's gonna have his own podcast on like financial advice with Ben.
Actually, you know what I wanted to do? I wanted to bring our financial guy on.
Yeah.
Our advisor on to give people financial advice.
I think that would be amazing.
Wouldn't that be fun? We could take Twitter questions about how to save up.
Is that something you guys want? Like financial advice with Ben? And our financial branch. Wait, what's his title? Financial manager? Financial planner. No, he's more than that. He's a... What's the title?
I think wealth manager might be the
something
title.
Like that.
Yeah, if you have enough money, you get a wealth manager, not just a financial planner, right?
I don't know what the difference is. Just someone who helps you make decisions about stocks and investments and how to diversify your portfolio.
We could have a whole conversation about like YouTube money too, because I'm shocked with how many YouTubers we meet who don't have people taking care of their money.
Yeah, that is scary.
It's shocking.
And then they just go buy a bunch of Lambos and nothing, and then it's just money like sitting in the bank but not in investments.
Well, I'm more scared of I guess I don't have too much sympathy for people making tons of money in general, but if you're making a lot of money and then you're just putting it in an account where it's sitting as liquid cash, you're just losing value over time to inflation, right? You should be doing something with that money other than just letting it sit in an account.
And I always question, like, do these young people like now on TikTok making millions of dollars, do they have people looking out for them like their parents, or do they have someone who's well protecting what they're making or managing it well? I really don't know.
Are they paying their taxes?
Are they paying? We'll never know. Just ask Ben.
The IRS might find out. But...
Oh my God. Well, we have lots of ideas for future podcasts.
There you go. Apologies to David Dobrik. We were gonna have him on, but
he was too busy donating.
We were supposed to have him on today, but SeatGeek didn't want to sponsor the video, so we couldn't work it out. So maybe another time we'll try it out.
All right, everybody. I hope everyone is doing well.
So,
yeah. Thank you guys for just all your support, just for watching our videos. Thank you for 300,000 subscribers on this podcast channel, on our YouTube channel.
Leave a comment below to tell us what amazing people we are, so we feel better about ourselves for all the charitable giving.
No, you don't have to do that. I just wanted to say thank you, but it's a tough position to be in. You know, like I don't know what to do.
It's tough that we're in.
No, it's not. See, there you go.
It's not.
Exactly my point. Sometimes I just wonder, like, should I talk at all? Because it's better if you just like don't talk.
Well, that is the David Dobrik approach to things, actually. Is it like
he just doesn't talk outside of his videos?
Well, no, like anytime anyone in his circle of friends has done something controversial, like
he just doesn't
date an underage girl, he just goes silent on it. And honestly, that is the smartest approach. The less you say, the less you can get in trouble. So he has a great
manager.
Or he's just smart and knows not to say anything.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes you wonder, like, why we started a podcast.
Yeah.
Because the more we say things, the more we're risking people hating us for what we say.
And I'm sure there will be something that we said, like maybe one sentence of this podcast was problematic in terms of not recognizing someone's reality or a narrative that we just didn't see in our particular conversation. So I know this happens, and it's happened with a few of our podcasts now, where there's like one thing where people pick apart, well, they didn't acknowledge this, so therefore they are ignorant of that. And I just want to say, like, as much as this is a conversation between Ben and I, it's hard for it to be a true conversation between us and you guys, even though we're taking questions from you, because we'll take your questions, we'll say a few things. We don't have your response to our response, though, and then that podcast is over, right? Like the podcast is just in and of itself. We don't follow up again. So it is kind of tough sometimes to have these tough, tricky conversations and then know that there's probably something that I'm missing, and that's frustrating to me.
Enough people know we're well-intentioned enough to know that even if we misspoke or said something stupid, you know, we were wrong but not malicious in our opinion, or but I'm sure we do. Yeah, of course we have blind spots. We don't know everything. We're not always the smartest people about certain topics,
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. But I think the idea of, I'm excited at the prospect of eventually having guests on the podcast potentially, because then there is you getting that feedback of having another conversation. Like the other week we had a conversation about collabs, and while I thought we were pretty fair and careful in what we said, we're talking about other people and they're not there to say their side of things as well. And that's not really fair to do as well, right?
Which is one of the reasons why for a year at least, I was like, we're not doing a podcast. We're just going to get in trouble.
All right, we're going to end this podcast before Cristine changes her mind.
No.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for listening, for watching, for subscribing. Appreciate all the support.
Hope everyone is staying well and staying safe, staying sane, and don't break any nails.
Don't break your nails.
Don't be like me.
Yeah. Okay? Eat your hummus, stay safe, stay happy.
Drink your tea.
And we'll see y'all
later.
Next Taco Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye.